Welcome everyone. My name is Mohak Vora. I am from Department of Physics, Rai University, Ahmedabad, and our today's topic is something related with superconductor, that is introduction to superconductivity. Alright, now before we move to the phenomena of superconductor, let me tell you, these are the objectives that we'll cover in this session, that is concept of zero resistance, properties of superconductor, types of superconductor, and some of the applications. Now, what do we mean by a word superconductor? So before we move to the word and before we move to the material superconductor, let me tell you what do we mean by a word conductor. Conductor is such kind of material which can conduct the current. So a material which can conduct the current, that we can say it's a superconductor or it's a conductor, but we cannot say superconductor. We just can say the word conductor. Why? Just because a material conductor which can conduct the current has some resistance. So let me come to the point that how can we differentiate between a material called a conductor and a material called superconductor. So first we'll see what do we mean by a conductor. A conductor which can conduct the current, like a metal, iron, any kinds of conductor, but it has some resistance. So that is for sure, if you take any kinds of conductor, it has some resistance. Fine. But we are taking the material superconductor. Now the main difference between a material conductor and a material superconductor is that superconductor has the same properties of the conductor, but it vanishes the resistance. Now how it's possible? So we'll see, the word superconductivity itself means a phenomena in which certain metals, alloys and ceramics conducts electricity without any resistance, that is zero resistance, when it is cooled below certain temperature, that is something called critical temperature. So we can say that a material which is called a conductor can only become superconductor only if you cool it below the critical temperature. So we can define superconductor in such a manner that it's a material that loses all its resistance. That means it offers zero resistance to the flow of electric current when it is cooled below critical temperature, that is Tc. And we have lots of good examples like mercury, zinc, vanadium, tin, niobium. So these are the some of the good superconductors we can say. Well, superconductivity occurs in a variety of metals like tin, aluminum, alloys, ceramics, and any kinds of semiconductors. Fine. Popularly known semiconductors are like silicon and germanium. So we can also have some good superconductivity concept in these semiconductors like silicon and germanium. Fine. Superconductivity doesn't occur in noble metals like gold, silver, and nor in the most ferromagnetic materials. So we cannot say that if the material is a good conductor, then it has to be a good superconductor. No, it's not so. So it's not defined in such a way that if it's a good conductor, then it's a good superconductor. No, you cannot say that. So it's totally a new phenomena in which you cannot relate a conductor with a superconductor. Alright, now if we want to classify conductor with the superconductor, then it's the best way to analyze with the phenomena of temperature. So here it's a graph between resistance and temperature. So first one is something related with conductor, that is non-superconductive metal, in which what will happen, if you increase the temperature, resistance will increase. This is the first one. But similarly, if you decrease the temperature, then resistance will decrease. But if you cool the temperature, if you decrease the temperature at 0 Kelvin also, then also you will find some of the portions of resistance over here. So I can say that if you put the resistance, if you put the temperature level to the 0 Kelvin, then also you will find some resistance, that is at 0 Kelvin. But this is in the case of non-superconductive metal. Now if we take the case of superconductor, then we can easily say that if you increase the temperature, again the resistance will increase, and if you decrease the temperature, again the resistance will decrease. But at some point in superconductor, the resistance will suddenly decrease and resistance of superconductor suddenly drops to 0. Now how it's possible? So it's only possible at this point of time. So this we can say that Tc. So it's our concept that at Tc resistance of superconductor suddenly drops to 0. So if you want to make a superconductor from the material conductor, then you need to make your temperature goes below the critical temperature, right? So we'll come to the next objective, that is the properties of superconductors. Now there are so many good properties of superconductors, but we'll take the first 8. So we can say that these are these important properties of superconductors: electrical resistance, effect of impurities, effect of pressure and stress, isotopic effect, magnetic field effect, that is critical magnetic field HC, critical current density, that is JC, persistent current, and last but not least Meissner effect. So we'll see one by one. We'll start with the properties of superconductor with electrical resistance. Now electrical resistance of a superconductor should be very low and is of the order of 10 raised to minus 7 ohm meter. Now how can we say that it should be of the order of the 10 raised to minus 7 ohm meter? So it's almost negligible, because superconductor is such a material in which resistivity decreases with the temperature. So I can say that the major difference between a conductor and a superconductor is of the R. R stands for resistance, and you can only decrease the value of R, that is you can only decrease the value of resistance by going the by taking the superconductor below the level of Tc, that is critical temperature. Alright, the next one is something called effect of impurities. Now when impurities are added to any superconducting material, means you can take any superconducting material, and if you take any impurities into that material, then definitely property is not lost, but Tc value is lowered. So we can say that effect of impurities is applicable on superconductor. Third one is something called effect of pressure and stress. Certain materials found to be superconducting on increasing pressure on them, means if you decrease their temperature below the critical temperature, then also you will not find that material to be in superconducting state. I am again repeating the same statement, that if you cool this material below the critical temperature, then also you will not find the material into the superconducting state. That's just because of the effect of pressure. So we'll take the example of cesium. Cesium is such kind of element which shows superconductivity below 1.5 Kelvin, that is its critical temperature, but only if you apply the pressure of 110 kilobar on the material. So that is the effect of pressure. And effect of stress is very easy to understand, because in stress the increase of Tc value should be there. So if you apply stress on any material, then definitely you will find the increase of Tc value in the material. So again, Tc is applicable to all kinds of superconductor, and every material has their own Tc. So effect of stress is highly applicable on any kinds of superconductor. Alright, next is something called isotopic effect. Isotopic word itself shows that it has something to take with its isotopes. So isotopic effect, how it's connected with Tc? Well, we'll see what do we mean by isotopic effect. Tc value varies with isotopic mass of a superconducting material, that is m. So m is not the simple mass or any kind of different kinds of mass, but m is something called isotopic mass. Isotopic mass of that specific superconductor. So variation in Tc with isotopic mass is something called isotopic effect. So there is a relation between Tc and its isotopic mass. Tc of the material and isotopic mass of the material is highly related with one of them. So we can say that if you change the isotopic mass of a superconductor, accordingly the Tc value would be changed. Fine, that is the isotopic effect. Next one is something very important as far as superconductor is concerned, because superconductor has to deal with only one phenomena, and that is something called magnetism. So there is a sharp relation between magnets and the superconductor, and this effect is something called magnetic field effect. Now how can we say that if sufficiently strong magnetic field is applied to a superconductor below its Tc, then definitely superconducting state will transfer to the normal state. So currently we are having the session, till now we are having the session about superconductor. Now let me tell you, if you apply certain magnetic field on the material, specifically a superconducting material, then superconductor will start superconductor will start penetrating about the magnetic field and it will convert into the conductor. So there is a relation between superconductor and a magnet. If you apply magnetic field on any superconductor, then superconductor will start taking place of a conductor. So superconductor will convert into the normal conductor. So we can say that if you apply magnetic field on any superconductor, then soon it will convert into the conductor. Superconductivity would be lost if you keep on applying the magnetic field. Now let me tell you, minimum magnetic field, that is the minimum amount of magnetic field that is required to destroy the superconducting state. Means if the material is already in superconducting state and if you keep on applying the magnetic field, that at some point the superconductivity would be lost, and that point is something called Hc, that is critical magnetic field. Here we can see from the graph is between magnetic field strength H versus temperature T. Now if you keep on applying the magnetic field, then at this point of time the superconductivity would be lost and the material will convert into the normal conductor. So here we can see from the graph that Tc and Hc has a relation, and this state is something called superconducting state. Below Hc, which you will find a material in superconducting state, and above Hc the material you will find in the normal conducting state. Fine. We'll see the next effect, that is critical current density, which we named as Jc, the maximum current density at which the superconductivity disappears. So again, if you apply current density to any material which is already there in a superconducting state, then again the material will convert from superconductor to normal conductor. So again the superconductivity would be lost if you keep on applying the current density, that is something called Jc. But here it's the maximum current density at which the superconductivity vanishes. Fine. At sufficient height current density, magnetic field starts exceeding critical magnetic field, that is Hc, and superconducting state disappears in the material. So this is the reason why a superconductor is transferring from superconducting state to a normal state. It's just because Jc itself is in relation with Hc. So current density is itself in a relation with the critical magnetic field Hc. So if you keep on giving the current density, then soon it start exceeding beyond the critical field Hc, and we are just seen from the previous slide that if you keep on applying Hc, then superconductor will starts penetrating and it will convert into the conductor. So that is all about the sixth property. Now we'll see the seventh property. This is very simple in case of understanding, because we already knew this from all of these properties, that superconductor is such a material in which resistance is totally zero, or we can say that of the order of 10 raised to minus 7 ohm meter. So that is almost negligible. So we can easily say that if a material is without any resistance, then current will literally go beyond that point without any significant loss or without diminishing into the strength. So persistent current means continuous current without any loss, without any resistance. That is the steady flow of current. We have taken the example of a loop. If we take a loop of a superconducting material and if we pass the current, then definitely we'll get the 100% output just because there is no resistance. Because it's a superconductor, so we can say that R would be 0, and if R would be 0, then we'll find the continuous current, that is something called persistent current. Fine. Last but not least, the Misner effect. Misner effect itself is a concept. It's not the property of superconductor, but it's the concept of superconductor. So we can say that there are two cases. Now the blue one shows the material superconductor, and these lines are the magnetic field lines. Now we'll take two cases. The first case is something called temperature beyond critical temperature, that is T greater than Tc, and the another case will take temperature less than critical temperature. So we can say that when a superconducting material is placed in a magnetic field, means you have that superconducting material and you place between two magnets, so definitely you are placing the superconducting material between the magnetic field with the conditions of H greater than Hc and T greater than Tc in that case magnetic field lines, means this we are talking about the first case in which T greater than Tc and H greater than Hc should be there, the magnetic field found to penetrate throughout the material. So it's a superconducting material, you are keeping this material between the magnets, and H should be greater than Hc and T should be greater than Tc. In that case magnetic field lines will penetrate through the material. But in another case, if we see that the same scenario would be there, but we'll just make the magnetic field less than the critical magnetic field, and critical temperature should be of the order of the superconducting sense. So we can say that temperature should be less than critical temperature. In that case, that is the second case, magnetic field lines will not penetrate the superconductor, but it will come out of the material. And this effect is something called levitation effect. So this is the final and the foremost concept of superconductor, that is Meissner effect. Fine. Our next objective is something called types of superconductors. Well, if we talk about superconductor, there are only two types of superconductors, that is type 1 and type 2. From this graph we can say that how it distinguish with one another. So this is the graph of type 1 superconductor, this is the graph of type 2 superconductor. Turn by turn we'll see what are the type 1 superconductors. So first, in type 1 superconductors, it exhibits complete Meissner effect. We have seen the 8th property, Meissner effect. It is only applicable to type 1 superconductors. Fine. Then it's completely diamagnetic, because here we have already seen from this figure that it's the levitation effect. Now the levitation effect is of the certain type of magnetic effect, that is something called diamagnetic effect. So in diamagnetic effect we can say that type 1 superconductors are completely diamagnetic because it exhibits complete Meissner effect, right? Okay. Next one is something called values of Hc are always too low in type 1 superconductors. Well, type 1 superconductors has only one critical magnetic field and their values are always too low. Fine. Transition at Hc is reversible. Now what do we mean by reversible? Reversible is something called, if you take your magnetic field value beyond Hc, you will find the material into the conducting state, and if you take your magnetic field value H below Hc, that is H less than Hc, you will find your material into the superconducting state. So that is something called reversible, means the same material is there, but if you apply the magnetic field beyond Hc, you will find that material in the conducting state, and again if you reverse the magnetic field amount and if you take it below Hc, that is H less than Hc, you will find the same material in the superconducting state, and that is only possible in type 1 because transition at Hc is reversible in type 1 superconductor. So that's all about the type 1. Now we'll see type 2, how we can say that it's different than type 1. So from the graph itself we can see that there are not one Hc but there are two Hcs. So that is Hc1 and Hc2. Hc1 is something called lower critical point and Hc2 is something called upper critical point. So what about the region between Hc1 and Hc2? So the region between Hc1 and Hc2 is something called the mixed state or vortex state, right? So when the material is in the range below Hc1, we can say that the material is in superconducting state. I'm talking about the range between the 0th level, the ground level, and between Hc1 and the ground level. So it's the material is having magnetic field less than the amount of Hc1, then the material would be there in superconducting state. But if the material goes beyond Hc2, that means H should be greater than Hc2, that is the upper critical point. In that case material would be there in normal conducting state, not in the superconducting state. So the straight question arises in our mind, then what will happen if the material is there between Hc1 and Hc2? So that is something called mixed state or vortex state, and this mixed state or vortex state should be only kept in type 2. It's not there in type 1 because here we have Hc1 and Hc2, but in the type 1 we are only having Hc. So it's not possible to have that state between Hc1 and Hc2. Fine. So these are the simple comparison of type 1 and type 2. These are the simple comparative points between type 1 and type 2. Like type 1 are called soft superconductors because they possess only one critical field, but type 2 are something called hard superconductor because they possess more than one critical field, that is Hc1 and Hc2. Okay, apart from that, the critical field value is very low in type 1, but in type 2 the critical field value is very high. Now this superconductor exhibits perfect Misner effect, that is type 1, but in type 2 it doesn't have any relation. It has nothing to take with the effect of Misner effect, right? These are the graphs that we already cleared about that. It's about magnetization versus applied magnetic field. Magnetization M versus applied magnetic field H on the X bar. Fine. So type 1 we can say that they have limited technical applications because they have lower critical fields values like plumbum, mercury, zinc. These are some of the examples of type 1. But in type 2 it's always a mixture of two elements like niobium with germanium and niobium with silicon. Now why we have taken germanium and silicon only? Because these are some of the good semiconductors. That's why we are taking these materials with the superconductor niobium. So we can say that if there are two materials, then definitely there would be two critical field, and that's why its critical field value is high. So we can say that they have not limited technical application, but they have very high technical applications. These are some of the fundamental graphs of type 1 and type 2 through which we can elaborate it much better. So the same concept of superconducting state to normal state, this superconducting state, normal state, but between these two states you will find one vortex state, that is mixed state in the type 2. Fine. So this is the last portion of our today's session, is something about the applications of superconductor. So superconductor, from the phenomena of superconductivity, we can say that it is such a material in which R would be 0, so resistance would be 0, and you will find the persistent current. So where people used to have such good applications of superconductors, there are lots of good applications, but nowadays we are aware about the name Maglio. Maglio, itself, this name is a short form of magnetic levitation, and the another effect is something called Josephson effect, but we are aware about the name called squid. Now what do we mean by the word squid? So we'll see one by one. Let me take the first one, that is magnetic levitation. So levitation is something called when a material is suspended on another material. Means if there are two materials and a material is suspended on another material without any support except magnetic field. Means a material is levitating on another material. There is a gap between two of the materials just because of the magnetic field. That is something called magnetic levitation. And if it's achieved by magnets, then it's definitely called Maglio. So it is highly applicable to every branches of magnetism, but currently we are having the very great application of Shanghai Maglio. Shanghai Maglio, you will find electrical operations, totally electrical operations. You will find the upcoming technology. It runs with the speed of 500 kilometers per hour. That is just because there is a gap between the railway line and the bogies. So from this graph, we can say that magnetic levitation is achieved by this sense. So this train is totally runs on a magnetism concept, but these materials, specifically these materials, we are using all the materials of superconductors. So we are using superconductors for these trains. That is just because in superconductors you will find no resistance. So if there is no resistance, then trains will go with the faster speed. We can say with the speed of 500 kilometers per hour. So you will find NSSN. So south and north combination would be such. This is the diagram of train, and I mean the diagram of bogies, and these are some of the diagrams of the tracks on which the train will run. So there is a gap, almost we can say that 2 to 3 feet gap between the train bogies and the railway lines, and on which there is a combination of S versus S and N versus N. So if we take one simple example, that if the train is going from the left side to right side, then there is a combination on the right hand side. We'll find the combination of S versus N. So what will happen? We all know about the magnets. It's the basic concept. If it's south and if it's north, then it will attract. And on the back hand side, we can say that there is a combination of n versus n. So what will happen? The n versus n will repulse. The train will move in this direction from left to right. Here the diagram is given on the side of right hand side to left hand side. So we can say that S and S will repulse and N and S will attract. So the train will move in such a direction, that is from right to left. Fine. So that is the basic concept of magnetic levitation, but it is highly applicable with superconductor because we are using superconducting materials inside these trains. Fine. The next one, that is something about squid. So what do we mean by the word squid? Squid is something called superconducting quantum interference device. But before we go to the word squid, let me take the concept of Josephson junction. So the word Josephson junction itself means that the word junction comprises of two or more elements at the same place. So we can say that this is the first material, this is the second material. Both the materials are comprises of the material of superconductor. So there are two superconductors and a thin strip of an insulator. So we can say that it's not the conductor, it's not the metal, it's an insulator like rubber, wood, plastic, any kinds of insulator. So there is a sharp line between two superconductors which comprises of the material insulator. Then you will find the junction, it's a kind of sandwich structure. So there are two superconductors separated by a very thin strip of an insulator. That junction is something called Josephson junction. Now through these Cooper pairs, we are already aware about the concept of Cooper pairs. Let me tell you, Cooper pairs are nothing but the pair of electrons. So if we take any pair of electrons, then we can say that Cooper pairs are there in one superconductor, then it will tunnel through the insulator. See, insulator cannot sustain with the current, insulator cannot conduct the current because it's not the metal. But here we are having the Cooper pairs so that the transfer of one Cooper pair from one superconductor to another superconductor is possible just because of this situation of Josephson junction. And this concept is used in the famous application called squid. Now how can we say that the squid is highly dependent on the Josephson junction? Because this is the diagram of squid and the squid itself comprises of two Josephson junction. So how can we form squid? If I want to make a squid, then how can I make squid from the earlier concept of Josephson junction? So we can say that two Josephson junctions are connected to one another in parallel. So this is the parallel connection of two Josephson junctions with one another, that is something called squid. Fine. So you need to take two Josephson junctions and you need to connect them in parallel with one another, then you will find the superconducting quantum interference device, that is something called squid. And as a result, extremely small magnetic flux can be detected with this device. So it's the highly sensitive device, it's the sensitive magnetometer. Squid is actually nothing but the sensitive magnetometer through which you can detect any kinds of magnetic flux, voltage, your brain waves, the amount of iron in the liver at very small amount. That is something highly sensitive. So I can say that if you say that thoughts becomes things, thoughts are forming each and everything, then how can you measure your thoughts? That I have some amount of thought. So through the material squid, we can say that through the two Josephson junctions we form one squid, and we can say that squid will definitely let you know about the brain waves through which you can sensitize any amount of magnetic flux, any amount of voltage. That's all from our presentations. Thank you very much.